Hey everyone, happy Wednesday, happy 1st of October, middle of the week, start of a new month, and of course the start of quarter 4 of 2025 in our calendar year. So I just wanted to bring you a quick astrology report for today's transits and looking at the chart based on just the middle of the day in terms of British summertime. So I'll pull up the chart in a moment and show you. But as I've already posted on social media earlier, this chart shows a grand cardinal square, which can, of course, bring frustrating energy, some tension, some challenges. So we'll look into that. There's obviously other aspects going on. There's harmonious aspects. So we'll look at those as well. But remember, we are in Libra season. So this is about coming from a place of balance, harmony, and fairness. Okay. Mercury is also in Libra at the moment and is part of this grand square, I hasten to add. But Mercury's got that supporting energy from the sun, solar essence of the cosmos, because we are in Libra season. So I'll take you into that. I'll pull up the chart and you'll have to excuse my sort of setup here if it sounds a bit echoey. I'm trying to find the best place to set all of this up, okay? And you can see my shadow on the wall there. So hopefully that's not too off-putting, but you'll see the chart very shortly. So yeah, we'll dive into it and we'll just have a look. Now, of course, next week we have got the full moon in Aries. So I will be doing an astrology report on that. So we're building up to that point of the full moon in Aries. And of course, releasing anything that's not in alignment with our sovereignty. And by that, I mean the sovereign path of the self in terms of what we want to pursue. So it's dealing with what's been coming up, what Neptune's been revealing, what Saturn is testing us on, going through the eclipse portal that we've recently had, having to close out cycles, major cycles, in fact, or profound transformation of cycles in order to get us to this point of then saying, okay, now I release anything that's not in alignment with myself's journey, okay, my own journey. So without further ado, let's get into the chart, okay? So bear with me whilst I just share this on the screen. I've also looked at it against the UK's chart just to give some context. So bear with me whilst I pull this up on the screen. Okay. Here you go. Right, so you can see straight away, big red square in the middle. Those of you familiar with my reports will know that I'm drawn to certain aspects. I get intuitively drawn, or sometimes spirit will guide me specifically to elements in the chart because there's messages in there for yourselves, okay? And take what resonates, leave what doesn't. This is based on a freeze frame of the cosmos at this particular time. Energy moves, planets move, asteroids move, okay? So it's understanding that at every moment, there's going to be a different alignment because degrees change, minutes change, okay? This is a freeze frame of the cosmos. It just shows you this kind of snapshot of what's going on at this particular time. And as I say, I just took it at 12, okay? When I was looking at the chart earlier, I thought I will choose 12 o'clock on the 1st of October and we'll go from there, okay? So Sun in Libra, we know we're in Libra season. Moon in Capricorn, not the best place for the moon. The moon is at detriment in Capricorn because the moon rules Cancer, which is the opposite sign. So this is where the emotional home is not comfortable, okay? But if we're aware of all of these different things, we can use it to our advantage. So it's being aware of the energy, applying it to our situation, if it resonates, if it applies, and how we can work with the energy. So even though we know there's challenging energy from this square and other aspects here, we've got semi-squares, we've got quincunxes, we've got the grand square, that's going to provide some kind of challenging energy. And if you look at the transits against your own natal chart, you're going to see how that plays out better for yourself. But just the moon in Capricorn alone is enough to say, okay, we're going to be tested potentially within our emotions because it's not a comfortable place for the moon. Saturn, who of course rules Capricorn, takes emotion out of things. And that's why Saturn is so focused and driven and determined. And that's why a lot of Capricorns, if they are fully in their Capricornian essence, and it might be that someone has a lot of Capricorn in their chart, that gives them the oomph to be extremely disciplined and determined, because they can remove emotion from it and say, I'm getting on with it, I'm focused, this is it. So it's not the nurturing side of Cancer, okay, when it comes to feelings and the unconditional love. It's not to say that's not there. This is about just taking it out of the equation whilst we deal with what we need to deal with, okay? And the moon, as you can see, is part of this grand square. So in this grand square, we've got Mercury in Libra, supporting cast to the sun. We've got Jupiter in Cancer. We have got Chiron in Aries, retrograde at the moment, and then the moon in Capricorn. So, of course, the opposition that's happening is between Cancer and Capricorn. So Jupiter versus the moon, and Libra and Aries, Mercury versus Chiron. All of these signs, Libra, Cancer, Aries, Capricorn, are cardinal, and that's why it's a grand cardinal square. Cardinal energy starts things off, it kicks things off, it's the start of something. We are at the start of a new month, calendar month, okay? Doesn't matter so much for the astrology, folks, okay? Because the calendar is man-made, so, you know, take that as you will. But we are, of course, because we do work with the man-made calendar, we are at the start of a new month, and we are at the start of Q4 2025. So it is a reset point. We've just had the eclipse portal. We've had the cycle within a cycle with those 2 new moons in Virgo, with the full moon in Pisces eclipse in the middle, and of course the equinox energy. So it's been big, it's been a lot. And that has ushered in new cycles left, right, and centre, because we've had to close out old ones. Major shift in consciousness going on the planet. So we're needing to shed the baggage that no longer aligns with our soul's truth. Okay. This grand square comes in and says, look at me. I am a grand square, just pointing out that there could be some tension. And I mentioned this on my social media earlier about, there's a phrase that is, I don't know if it's just an English phrase, I'm not sure, but it's being at 6s and 7s. So it's kind of like being a bit all over the place, because cardinal energy wants to start things off. We've got 4 players here in cardinal signs that form this grand square. So we want to start things off with fair communication, Mercury and Libra. We want to bring balance into things by communicating. We want the growth that Jupiter is offering, but from a place of nurturing and unconditional love with the Cancerian energy. We want to expand that. We're trying to heal our sovereignty, Chiron in Aries, and that is a time of introspection at this moment because Chiron is retrograde. So we're looking at how we can put the metaphorical crown back on our heads and own it going forward. The self, the warrior self, the sovereign self, and then the moon in Capricorn, which I've already mentioned, but it's about needing to start things off from a non-emotional place, focus and drive, okay? And doing all those things at once. And that's why it's like 6s and 7s at loggerheads, and then the opposition. So of course, the moon in opposition to Jupiter. If Jupiter wants to expand from a place of unconditional love with the Cancerian energy and provide that growth in the heart space, if you look at it like that, and then the Capricornian energy is saying, you got to get things done. Like, it's time to just get things done. We've got to not dilly-dally about emotions here too much. There's a fine line between it, because we need to feel into things, certainly when we connect with our intuition. That's a feeling more than a thinking. But it's about not having the emotional attachment to things. Okay, so we're trying to promote growth. We're trying to remain hopeful with our path going forward, because Jupiter also brings hope, but it's the expansion that we're wanting to see. And coming from a place of unconditional love, the Cancerian energy, and nurturing in order to receive that back through opportunities, situations, people, whatever it might be, we need to not be emotionally attached, okay? Because we've still got a task at hand, whatever that task at hand might be. And then we've got Mercury in opposition to Chiron, okay, Libra with the Aries energy. So communication from a fair, balanced place to restore balance, to bring back harmony, to perhaps bring some divine justice into the situation, and for it to be reciprocal, fair, okay? And this is, I mean, that's a message in itself, but this is also heavily connected to our relationships, because Libra rules the 7th house of relationships with people, places, and things. So even when you think of it like this, our relationship with ourselves in terms of our own thoughts, amidst this challenging energy, we need to keep a level head. We need to have the balance and the fairness in how we communicate to ourselves as we navigate all of these shifts. So that's bringing balance into a relationship we have with our own thoughts, but also with people, you know, in our relationships, being able to speak up, to restore balance, to bring that equilibrium in within the connection, within that relationship, okay, is very important. But the opposition energy is Aries, so we still need to stand up for ourselves as that sovereign self, and that's what's healing us. So to use that opposition energy to our advantage is by coming from a place of the self and the sovereignty, knowing what's fair and what isn't, knowing where balance is needed in a situation, and then being open enough to communicate that. So it's coming from the place of the self, but it's restoring balance in a relationship, if that makes sense, okay? Now, I would say they're all cardinal signs, of course, but because the sun is in Libra, I feel intuitively that Mercury has got a sort of head start on this, because the soul essence of the cosmos is supporting that energy of fairness and balance. So if we apply that from a soul perspective, and we are taking emotional attachments out of it, but we're coming from a soul-driven place, needing and wanting balance at the very foundation to build upon, that's where we can then enable the expansion to come in, because we can have that self-love for what we're trying to achieve. That's still within that Cancerian energy. And if we can expand that within ourselves, we're still being sovereign and we're not getting too emotionally attached. That's enabling us to work with this grand square energy in a positive way. Okay. The sun is also in trine, which is harmonious, to Pallas in Aquarius, who is side by side with Pluto there. So Pallas is also a warrior spirit. Okay, it's a warrior energy. Divine feminine asteroid. Okay. This is about strategy. So in trine with the sun, soul strategy is our friend. So that's why it's important to connect with intuition, the inner compass within the soul, and strategize where needed in terms of navigating this new reality, Aquarius energy, that we're innovating, moving into with that profound transformation of Pluto, further to all these shifts and further to closing out the cycles. So if we can balance that and we can strategize from a soul perspective, and we're being driven by the mercurial side of it with communicating in a fair way, restoring balance in our communication, talking to ourselves in that fair, balanced, harmonious way, that's going to enable us to work through, navigate this energy. The moon is in sextile to Neptune and Saturn, who have remained close for quite a while now. Saturn, as part of his retrograde, is now back in Pisces, covering old ground. I've spoken about this before. And Neptune is at 0 degrees of Aries, which can be quite uncomfortable, just like the anaretic degree of the previous sign can be, 29, okay? But they're close to each other. And Neptune, later on this month, because we're now in October officially, later this month, Neptune will also retrograde back into Pisces. And that is Neptune's home. So, of course, that's going to be a more comfortable feeling. But it's going to be a huge reminder and encouragement from Neptune to connect with source energy within, i.e. your intuition. That's the path forward. And of course, he is lifting the veil on a lot of things in our own life and externally to us to wake us up. This is the Great Awakening that we're currently in, if you've not already noticed. And Saturn is also applying the lessons and testing us to get us through this awakening, to get us through the ascension process, the up-leveling if you're already on the journey, okay, and testing us in terms of our spiritual integrity. So this sextile, which is also harmonious, even though the moon is not in a comfortable place, because of what is coming up for us and what's been shown to us, it's a major lesson. Think of it as a Saturnian lesson. It's a major lesson for us to try and separate our emotions when it comes to emotional attachments that are unhealthy for us, especially when we need to just get things done, but also the feeling into our intuition. I hope that makes sense how I've explained it, because Moon in Capricorn is not a comfortable place. Saturn, of course, rules Capricorn, so there is harmony, but soul's integrity, soul's truth, it's almost like a lesson in itself by saying, look, you're too emotionally attached to that and you need to learn your lesson with that. And my mate Neptune has lifted the veil and showed you this. When are you going to learn your lesson? Saturn can be quite harsh, okay? But as I said, it's to get things done. It's the focus and discipline that brings the success of Saturn when you align with that. Saturn is a great teacher and we are receiving lessons at the moment. So we need to understand the lesson here is don't be reactive and impulsive in terms of emotional attachments. Feel into things, absolutely. But know when it's too much of a distracting attachment. Certainly where we're forging ahead in terms of what we're trying to do. Okay. There's also opposition energy here between Juno, who has just started her journey in Sagittarius, 0 degrees there. Opposition there with Uranus in retrograde in Gemini. So yes, we're at the start of this new calendar month cycle, and Juno is at the start of a cycle of Sag, and it is about commitment to the journey and what we're learning. So this also applies to the Saturnian lessons, what we're learning. What is all of this teaching us? Where we need to bring balance into a situation, where things have been unfair, where we've maybe not been so committed to our path, and that's been revealed to us. Juno is close to Vesta there. That's 2 divine feminine asteroids together. So what are we trying to create in our life that we might have overlooked? What have we learned about this? Do we understand what our sacred flame is? That which we're trying to pursue that brings the joy within? Have we learned that? Sag energy. Is there still more learning to be done? Are we committed to the path? And the opposition to Uranus, well, Uranus brings change, and there is a retrograde going on, and sometimes change means that you've got to look at something from different perspectives, Gemini energy, and apply logic, Gemini energy, in order to understand what's going on. Now, they're both mutable signs, so there is flow to this, okay, because we're navigating this grand square. I think that's intense enough. So it's quite nice to have the mutable energy of the change, but we've got to understand, are we committed to the path? Are we committed to the path of change? Are we willing to look at things from different perspectives? Are we willing to apply logic? Are we willing to communicate the change that we want to experience? Okay. Of course, the other 2 mutable signs are Pisces and Virgo. So that's where the South Node and the North Node are. North Node, the direction in which we're heading. The ethereal path, Pisces. Connection to our intuition, following our inner compass, surrender, flow. South Node, where we're moving away from. The perfectionist view of how things should be. And you'll notice here, the Venus is getting closer to the South Node. So when it comes to our Venus values and our investment of our resources, have we been investing our time, our energy, our attention in situations, people, even thoughts where it's not been aligned for us because we've had an expectation that something or someone should be a certain way? Now, remember with Venus, there is an emphasis on self-love here, 100%, because we've got to look at our resources as being extremely valuable. So I call them our Venus values. And Virgo energy likes to clean things up. So we've got to clean up our investments here. Where are we investing our time, our energy, which is extremely valuable, our money, our attention, our love? Where are we investing all those things? Are we investing our Venus values in situations, people, where we've had too many expectations of how things should be? Have we invested conditionally, if you like? Have we invested with an expectation that it has to be a certain way? Well, the encouragement is to go more with the flow and to detach from that idea of the past that things have to be a certain way, because newsflash, reality is changing. This is part of the Great Awakening. And if you're awake to this journey, you're going to know that it's not the same and it's never going back to how it was. So this is how we can navigate through the situation and understand that even looking at the Libra energy side by side, you know, we've got to come from a place of our resources, our inner resources are extremely valuable. And if we want fairness and balance and harmony, we need to invest our resources wisely. And taking you back to the sovereign self, we're healing our sovereignty because we're understanding what is right for us and what isn't right for us. It all fits into the same game. When we can understand what we want, also the sacred flame, what brings us joy, what sparks that passion within us, what sparks that flame within us, pursuant of that, okay, we need to be pursuant of that. That's fire energy with both of those, by the way. So if we're in pursuance of our sacred flame because we want to feel the joy, we deserve to feel that joy. Okay, so therefore, if we need to restore balance in a situation to bring in that joy or to enable us to pursue that which lights us up, we probably need courage to do that. We need to own our sovereign strengths and we need to communicate, even if it's to ourselves, as I was saying before. Okay, and that expansion that we want to experience from a loving place with the Cancerian energy needs to be looked at as well, because we need to not get emotionally attached to situations that's going to be disruptive to us. Okay, again, it's investing our energy, investing our emotions wisely. And Saturn will be saying, you want to get this done? Take emotion out of it. Work on that for an hour and then put emotion into it if you want. But he is very clear that it's like, you've got to get on with this. Okay, whatever that might be. So if there is a certain task that you want to do and there's distractions left, right, and center, because it's crazy energy at the moment, it's about understanding, right, let's not get emotionally attached to that. Let's figure out, let's look at things from different perspectives. Let's understand I'm committed to the path. I'm receiving what's coming up. These lessons are coming in and I need to focus on this because I am worthy, you are worthy, okay, of pursuing that which you desire to pursue. but balance needs to be restored. That needs to be at the foundation. There needs to be that harmony, that fairness, reciprocity. You invest in something, it invests in you back. So even pursuing something that you love to do, because you love to do it, you're investing your time in it, you're investing your energy, perhaps even your money, and then you're getting that joy back. Okay, so it's about understanding, certainly from a soul strategy perspective. Remember the trine between the sun and Pallas. We're moving forward into a new reality. So if you need to strategize about what you can do to bring back the balance in your own situation, whilst considering all those other aspects I've mentioned, then this is perfect energy to work with. Soul strategy. And between these two, it's air energy, but the cardinal energy is Libra. So it's driven from the soul. Okay, we've got that profound transformation going on. We've had to go to the deepest, darkest echelons of our soul in order to, receive the insight of what needed to be transformed and putting things into practice and closing out cycles. And it's been intense. So there might be further strategy now moving forward to maintain balance, to bring balance back in, whatever it might be, okay, if this is resonating for you. So that's just to give you a little insight, okay, and just to share with you, because I did put this chart against the UK's chart to give you context of the house system. UK's natal chart is in the middle, and then we've got what I've just shown you on the outside, okay? So you can see I've drawn the square and everything inside, but I've not got as much room to work with when I do it like this, so it always looks a bit full on. Now you'll see there's an extra line because there's forming. That's not proper English, is it? I formed a cross here, but I will come on to that. So this grand square is actually affecting, for the UK, the 10th house, the 6th house, the 4th house, and the 12th house. 4th house is about foundation, and that's where the sun is. And I've mentioned about bringing back balance into our foundation. Very important for the collective of the UK. 6th house, daily routines and schedules, where we are of service. Well, the moon's in Capricorn. So emotional attachments, where we are of service to people, to others, and also in our day-to-day routines. Let's get the task done in our day-to-day stuff today and not get too emotionally attached, reactive, impulsive. 10th house, inner authority and work. And 12th house, the hidden subconscious realm. So that expansion is probably going on beneath the surface, if we can come from a place of self-care and self-love. But what I wanted to point out is the fact that Mercury in Libra is in exact opposition to the UK's natal sun in Aries. So communication, speech is absolutely focus point for the soul essence of the UK. Take that as you will. But there is a challenge here with opposition. It's like a push-pull energy of wanting to speak up, to restore balance, fairness, and divine justice, versus the soul essence of the UK in Aries, which is about the self. So when you think of it, I know I'm talking about the UK because it's the UK's natal chart. Think of the UK as a person, okay, in this context. So it's almost like the UK soul wants to do what the UK soul wants to do, Aries energy, if it as a nation is embodying sovereignty from a place of inner authority. Okay, and there is opposition between that and expression, communication to restore balance and fairness. So, without going into too much detail on here, there's been a lot recently in the UK relating to expression. certainly where things have been unfair. So there is opposition energy within this big style today, within this ground square. So the energy is challenging enough, but that direct opposition, Mercury in direct opposition with the UK's natal sun, is challenging the soul essence of the UK. Okay. So obviously, if we were looking at your natal chart in the middle, it would be showing you, you know, what Mercury is doing versus your chart, or what the other planets are doing versus your chart, and so on. Okay, but that's something that stood out because that is exact. The minutes are different, but the degrees are, of course, the same. And here, Neptune and Saturn are very close to the midheaven point in relation to the UK's natal chart. So getting close to that point in the ninth house at the moment, but we'll be moving into inner authority. So Saturn, I mean, they are, to be honest with you, you know, they are actually going to be moving the other way because of the retrograde. But they're touching, I say they're touching, there's degrees difference, but they're kind of touching the midheaven. So it's almost like how people are seeing the UK, okay, with the midheaven, and what is almost being illuminated through the crown chakra of the UK, the veil's being lifted on that. Because Neptune's right close to it. And Saturn is saying, are you, the UK, are you in alignment with your soul's integrity? And what are we learning and discovering about this ninth house? Okay, so I find it fascinating. I mean, I believe in astrology, clearly, but I find it fascinating because of how things are playing out at the moment and what the energy is showing us. Okay, right, fabulous. Let's leave it there. I'll stop sharing. Yeah, so apologies, that shadow is really like distracting me, but we've got to embrace the light and shadow in everything. So there we go, just got to get used to it. So yeah, I'm just sort of working out how I can set things up here at the moment. Okay, so hopefully this has helped just bring a bit of insight into the transits for today. I'm going to try and post more regularly and look ahead to the astrology and of course cover that. I've been doing that quite a bit on my social media, putting the charts up, because I'll always show you the charts. You know, it's not coming from an AI bot. This is coming from me, channel guidance, okay, my insights in terms of what I'm shown with the chart and how I can discern and kind of interrogate the data that's there to bring the messages that you might need to hear. Okay, so it might not resonate with you, that's fine. It might resonate with someone else, brilliant. Okay, so take what resonates, leave what doesn't, as always. But the energy has been intense, and it's, you know, there's been shift after shift after shift, and it might be that you're not feeling it as strongly as other people, and that's okay. This is about understanding. If you're awakening to something that's much deeper than you thought, then it's because things are being revealed, and because the veil is lifting and it's enabling you to step into your true power. Okay, and recognizing you've got the gifts within you. So societal conditioning, programming, all of that stuff, a lot of that is coming to the surface and being revealed, and people are understanding, wow, okay, so that which I was told all those years ago was actually not true, because you're remembering who you are on a soul level. Okay, and I could go into detail, a whole other video about that. Okay, so I hope it finds you well. Take care, and of course we've got the full moon coming up next week, as I was saying before, so I will bring you a lunar report in relation to that. But essentially, full moon in Aries, so we do need to understand and recognise what we need to release that's not in alignment with our sovereignty, what's not in alignment with what we want, because it's got to come from that first house place of the self and what we want to do. So releasing things that are not in alignment with that. Of course, full moons bring illumination, so there could be more things illuminated that will show you what's not in alignment with what you want. Okay, and remember, we are in Libra season, so we've got to look at our relationships with people, places and things as part of the equation in order to bring back balance, harmony, fairness, equal give and take, reciprocity and divine justice, okay, as part of all of this as well. So sending you all the best, and I'll see you soon. I'll see you on the next video. Take care.